Welcome to another Straight Up Tuesday tip. I'm 𝗤𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁. With me as always is Mark the Hitman Ainley. Mark, how are we doing today?
We're good. We're good. I'm excited to hear our guests today and their outlook on 2022.
Let's jump right into it, but I had to give you that quick intro. You felt lonely over there. So back with us, Rosario. Welcome back to the show. I know we've had you on several Tuesday tips. We've had you on several episodes. You are someone who has been very experienced in acquiring properties. You're someone who has lived through the downturn of '08. So we wanted to pick your brain today. You have buyers coming to you all day. People coming to Click Invest saying, hey, is the market overheated? Hey, is there inventory coming? What is your outlook for 2022? Help our listeners understand at least what you're seeing out there and what they should expect as buyers in 2022.
All right. Well, as always, thanks for having me on. You guys are huge resource and we're blessed to be partnering with you guys on these tips. So thank you very much. 2022. So we were just talking before we got recording here. You know, I think the market's going to stay extremely hot from what we're seeing because inventory is still very, very tight. And I dropped a crazy prediction out there, but I think 2022 is probably going to see a lot less investor transactions. Will probably hit a record low when you look at transactions done across the different buyer pools, whether it's traditional home buyers, investors, whatever. I think we're probably going to hit a record low in terms of investor transactions. That's my now. When I say investor transactions, I'm not referring to hedge funds. I'm talking about the mom and pop investors in the marketplace. We're probably going to do less transactions than we maybe ever have.
And what's driving to that conclusion?
Inventory being super, super tight. You know, I'm not a marketer, but if you go on social media, you know, you'll hear about people talking about ghost inventory or, you know, foreclosure tsunami coming. I shared some stats with you guys. The reality is we are, and I'm looking at a chart here, but we're going to be down 95% from the peak in 2010 in regards to foreclosure filings. Okay. So foreclosure filings, REOs, scheduled auctions, when you look at the inventory that's available or that's going to be hitting, it's down 95% from the peak. Okay. So that's why when you look at the MLS or, you know, you look at REO inventory, it's just not there. And I don't think it's going to be there for quite some time unless something catastrophic happens.
Got it. And you also mentioned that's filings, right? So in Chicago here, that's a year or two out before even that minimal amount of inventory hits the market.
Yeah. If I see one more, you know, webinar about all the ghost inventory coming, it's a ghost because you can't see it, you know, and it's not.
And it's not going to come back alive, right?
Yeah, it's not going to come back alive. It's dead. That's why it's a ghost, because it's non-existent, you know?
Yeah. And then you mentioned the institutional funds. Do you see them being the ones who just have the deep pockets that are going to pay the premium? You know, let's pretend I'm a seller in Chicago. I've owned this 3-unit in Avondale for 20 years. I want to get out. I saw my neighbor sold for 5. I want to ask 7 because no one else is asking anything. Mm-hmm. And you're thinking the institutional guys will actually sit there and pay something close to that or some premium. I'm making up numbers.
Yeah, depending on the product type, right? So, I mean, the institutional buy box, when I say that, I'm talking about Wall Street, like hedge funds. Traditionally, they focused on multi-unit, right? Going back into like mid 90s, that's when they got into the game hard and have been scooping up ever since. So bigger buildings, whatnot. But since 2011, they've been attacking single families. And what we've been seeing, the yields that they've been settling on is like in the 4s, which that's super low. A traditional investor, a mom and pop investor, is going to want to be closer to 10. You know, so if they're at 4% in terms of the return they're looking for, it's really hard to compete against. And to get under the hood a little bit, we're not just a platform. Like we're active. We're chasing deals. We're trying off market. Not trying off market. We're doing off market, but trying different strategies. So share with you guys like their pay per lead sources online. that these landing pages that you can subscribe to or set a budget and pay per lead and do all that. And it's a constant story we have here that, hey, this is somebody reaches out, we call them, they're like, oh yeah, we submitted it with OfferPad, or we open door, or this or that. Kelly with my office shares that quite a bit. Like, yeah, we can't compete against those guys. They're just paying too much. So we give them our offer and they laugh, and then they go off on their way,
And do you see, even if rates rise, like let's say we get the bumps we're expecting from the feds, you still believe that inventory is going to be this tight? Like, do you? I guess let me rephrase. Does that have an effect on anything that you're laying out here?
Yeah, what's going to happen, in my opinion, I think we'll see. I'm not going to say inventory loosen up. I think it's going to be easier to pick off deals if that happens, because people are going to get priced out. The average homeowner, even if it goes up a point like we were discussing, it's still historically low. But the reason why these prices are creeping up is because that FHA buyer, or whoever can afford the deal now, because their rates are in the 3s, right? If that goes up, now they get priced out. And then what that creates is more renters, right? So I think you'd be able to pick up more deals, but then you'll have a smaller pool on the back end when you go flip, if you're focused on 300K and under. I think if you're focusing on higher price points, that's a different conversation.
One thing to point out, though, about the hedge funds and Wall Street money, yes, I do think that they'll always kind of create an artificial bottom that will be there, unlike what we saw not exist in the Great Recession. But they won't play in C and D class space. Not saying run out and start investing in C and D class, but they do only really play in A, B plus, and they'll call it a very aggressive fund if they're doing B minus type stuff. So if you can find a sweet spot, or if you want to kind of hedge, no pun intended, yourself against them coming in and taking all the inventory over, and what I think what we're talking about here today is going to create a new real estate just world in the future. Like, it's not going to go back to what it looked like in the 80s or 90s. We're just in a different world going forward. And one way to protect yourself might be to be a specialist in the C class.
Great point. So the hedge funds, for the most part, they're all working off the same buy box, which is 1950 and newer, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,100 square feet or greater. We got an email today from one of them that switched up their buy box, and these guys want to buy 1,500 houses a month. All right. Like that's the beast, through all their states. They're in 14 states, 15 states, but still. And they're looking at 30K max for repairs. So, they want to deal with newer product, because the hedge funds come in and they're like, we want to buy everything, but then there's something called construction. So then they run into these construction nightmares, and they've got 1,000 homes that need to be rehabbed. And, you can't just type in an Excel and the rehab's done. Like, when you go from spreadsheets to execution, right? Their worlds apart. So they run into these huge issues on the construction side, and then they slow down and they go, oh, well, now we just want quick turns and we don't want bigger projects. So to Mark's point, I would be running around what they're doing. So instead of 3 2s, look for 3 1s. Instead of 1950 being your bottom, maybe go a little bit older, or go into pockets that the work is more than 30K. It's 40K, 50K, 60K, whatever, because you're not going to have to compete against those guys. A lot of stuff that gets sent to us, or when we're talking to prospective sellers, they've already been turned down by a hedge fund. So that's good for us, right? So that means it doesn't fit their buy box.
Yeah. The other last point I'll make, that I mentioned, they don't play in the C and D class, but they also don't like to play in the highly regulated areas. Maybe very tenant friendly. You didn't see too many, mostly because it's older stuff, but they weren't rushing out to buy stuff in Chicago or in the suburbs that have heavy rental license requirements. So that's another area. I think that's one good thing we have about Chicago. Even like from my side, property manager, the national property managers don't want to come play in this area because Cook County regulation, city regulation. Then you have 87 other individual village rental license stuff you got to jump through. And they can't do that from a national level. And same thing, the hedge funds will struggle to manage that as well, too. So they are going to think twice about coming here full blast, which will still leave us an opportunity.
Yeah, I think in Chicago, you guys have a much easier runway and longer runway in terms of the opportunities that are there. And it's very niche, right? In Florida, we are competing against the world. I mean, everybody is down here. So it's very, very hard to get any sort of real traction. So,
yeah. Good stuff, though. Mark, we good to wrap? We're good to wrap.
We're going to have a good question now that I'm going to get right.
All right. You are going to get this right. Multiple choice. And Rosario will let you chime in as well. So this is the most recent study, a couple of years old, but a couple of years back, there's a study of vehicle ownership amongst U.S. cities. And for a baseline, the national average is 8.7% of households don't have a vehicle. Okay. What percent of Chicago households live without a car? And the multiple choice options are 3.4, 9.9, 18.2, 27.5.
And this is Chicago proper. It's not like
Chicago proper.
I don't think it's going to be less than the national average.
I'll give you it. It's not less than the national average. So now we're down to
I don't think you would ask this question
Mark.
Because 9.9 or because the one just above it is not that exciting. So I'm going to have to go at 18.
Rosario, what do you want to go with?
Give me the last two options.
18.2 or 27.5?
I'm going to go extreme. 27.
27.5 it is. Click Invest with the win.
Wow.
So almost 3 out of every 10 people don't have a car in the city. That's what that says. That's crazy.
Yeah. And then there's another stat on it, but like the average car per household was much more in line because the families that do have cars have, 3 or whatever.
Gotcha.
Wow.
Huh. All right. I love it, man. I love it.
We'll get the next one.
All right, listeners.
Yeah, I'll take the win. I'll take the win.
Yeah, actually, yeah. We're selfish. If Mark doesn't get it, we get sad.
I'll put this out there. If anyone has any good questions, go to straightupchicagoinvestor.com and go to Ask Tom and Mark and put your question in there, and Tom will see it and he'll get ask it here online.
And we won't even fact check it. Just throw it out there. We'll
throw it out there. All right, listeners, thank you very much. Rosario, thank you for joining. Tom, thank you as always, and we will see you Thursday.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks all.